So good evening again. Bonsoir. I've written a short story about something of the history of chess and draughts, especially about the relationship between the king in draughts and the queen in chess. So in Dutch it is the dame and the dam. The dame is the queen, the lady, and the dam is the king. And in English it is the king and the queen, so that's also very romantic. I'll improvise, and for those who have difficulties either with English or with Dutch or with Frisian, whatever I'm talking, I've got some Dutch. So this is Frisian. Who wants the Frisian text in front? Yeah, Hauke, of course, and Piet. En Klaas en Julke.
Ja, mooi.
Oké. En dan heb ik wel een Nederland. This is the Dutch one. In Dutch. Corrie wel Fries zelfs.
Ja, ik versta het ook.
Ja, wel Fries. Ja. The Dutch one. Anyone more for Dutch, of course? Hans, thank you. Et François? Of François?
Français.
Français? Ja, Français. François, c'est le bon. Français? Et Patrick? Où est Patrick? Oui.
Merci beaucoup.
English? Patrick, he's showing it. Yes? So, everyone has got something? English? Yes? But what I'm going to tell you is just, it's about history, so no one knows for sure. This is just what I think. I cannot prove it, but I can make a story out of it. And in my opinion, it is certain that the game of draughts and the game of chess have influenced each other several times, at least 3 times, with respect to the board, and with respect to the name, dame, and with respect to the promotion, what happens when you arrive at the end, the final line, the king's row. The game of draughts is very, very old. No one knows how old, and it was born in Africa, in l'Afrique du Nord, North Africa, and it is played still like this in the booklet. And you do not play it on a board, but you just sit down in the sand and you take a stick and you draw lines, and you are playing on the lines, n'est-ce pas? Not on fields, but on lines and crossings of the lines. Well, at a certain moment, the game of draughts crossed the Mediterranean, so went to Spain, and there it was a new game, of course. And I think there was less sand to draw lines in Spain. And moreover, from the east, another game had arrived in Spain, and that was the game of chess. Chess originated in India, probably, and it traveled both west to Europe and east to China and Japan. And in Spain, something quite interesting happened, because originally the game of chess should be played, as it is still played in China and Japan, on a 9x9 board. And this is Chinese chess, and you are still playing on the lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Or Japanese chess, you play on fields 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. And that means you have just, in Japanese, here he is, you have just one king, and the king should be in the middle. And you have several types of pieces to the left and to the right. And in Chinese chess, exactly the same. Here the emperor in the palace. The emperor cannot leave the palace in Chinese chess. And of course, he doesn't have two queens. A king only has one queen, not two of them. So the pieces that are next to the king are not the queen, but are his two advisors. His two advisors, his helpers. And they are very weak pieces, because they do not have to fight. The elephants and the horses and the rooks, the castles, they have to fight. And of course the pawn, the simple men, they have to fight. But the king and his advisors remain in the palace and are very weak pieces. So in Spain, when chess arrived, there still was no queen. The queen did not exist in chess. The king had his advisors. But in Spain, for some reason or another, they started playing on an 8 by 8 square board. So one piece had to be moved. They had one piece too much, so they decided to remove one of the two advisors, because the advisors were, of course, weak pieces. They did not really use them. So then the king only had one advisor left. And who is the king's most important advisor? That is, of course, the queen, his wife. So that's, I suppose, that in Spain, at a certain moment, they started to call the queen's advisor no longer the advisor, but the queen, the Da. But it still was a weak piece, like in Chinese chess. It only moved diagonally, like this, one field at a time. No more. That was all. What the old queen, the original queen, was able to do. Just like this. And what I think that happened in Spain, that you had a king and you had his weak wife, the lesser queen, the old queen, only able to take one step diagonally at a time. And then someone saw, of course, that the queen of chess, the old queen, and the men of draughts almost made the same movements. So I think it's my theory that at a certain moment they started to call the game of draughts, no longer by one of the Arab names, but they said it's the juego de damas. It's the game with the queens, because all pieces move like the queen, like the old queen of chess. So, but more things happened. More things happened in Spain. For some reason or another, they decided that the queen could be stronger, even stronger than the king. So we know of various types of old queens in the game of chess, and at a certain moment, only after some development, the queen started to move in all directions as far as possible. But that was the end of a long development. So then you had the new queen, the great queen, or the strong queen. And that was also something quite important, perhaps the most important development in the game of chess here in Europe. When a pawn reaches the end row, he becomes mostly a queen. And that is something quite different from chess in China and Japan. And it is something new. Because promotion was not that important at first in chess. You had the army of elephants and horses and castles and guns, also guns in Chinese chess, and of course the ordinary man. And the men may only advance, they may never go back, like real soldiers. The general remains here, but you, simple soldier, never go back, always advance. But then you have, at a certain moment, you get a problem, because what should a soldier do when he arrives at the final draw. He may not retreat. So what, you have a problem there, a technical problem of the game. And then they decided, for example in China, okay, soldier, you may also move sideways, like this. But that's all. So that's not very important. It doesn't become a real strong piece. It still remains a simple pawn, only it may also move sideways, because otherwise you cannot make a move anymore with that piece. In Japan, they chose a different solution. Here is your army, and in Japan they have very many different pieces. You have the king, or the main general, and he has a gold general, a silver general, a horse, a spear, the bishop, the tower, and the ordinary man. And they can all make promotion as soon as they pass this line. They can all make some promotion. And they all become just a little bit stronger, but not very much. Not very much. For example, you've got the tower. Where is the tower? This is the tower. And the tower moves just in normal chess, the rook, like this. And as soon as it comes here, it may also make one move diagonally. And then on. Like this. It doesn't become a queen. And a normal pawn, he comes here, he may just go like this. And at this point, he may also go like this. And even one back, one retreat. But he doesn't become a queen, or a tower, or a bishop, or an elephant. Not possible. He remains he remains quite a weak piece. And the strong pieces remain the strong pieces, and they become a little bit stronger, but not very much. So, neither in Japanese chess, nor in Chinese chess, promotion makes the difference. It's necessary because there's an end to the board, but it doesn't make the difference in winning or losing. But that was the Spanish innovation. We've got a pawn, and the pawn, the weakest piece, becomes the strongest piece, the new queen, the great queen, at the end of the board. And then suddenly you have a new situation. You've got and that was a real innovation in Spain, that when the game is equal, and it remains equal quite a long time, but at a certain moment, one player has one pawn more. That's the minimal advantage. Only one pawn. But if you succeed in making the pawn reach the end line, at that moment you can win the game. So a minimal advantage, a minimal difference, becomes decisive, decides the game. And that's something new that is not present in Chinese, nor in Japanese chess, nor in, I think, original chess. It was an innovation that by having a very small advantage, you can win the game. And of course, the Spanish draughts players saw that too. And they were playing on their 64 square board with their men. And the man reaches the final row, and they ground it, comes a king, and then suddenly it can move, in this case, like a bishop. And it depends a little bit, but in many 64 square variants, the same advantage of one piece becomes decisive again. You win with one king more than your opponent. So you've got a very small difference, and the small difference is enough to win. So that is in two games, in the same country, the same innovation. And then at a certain moment, they decided to make a new board. This board was made by my grandfather or by his father, I do not know, but it was homemade. A board of 10 by 10. If it hadn't been invented 400 or 500 years ago, my grandfather would have invented it, I'm sure. But he was too late. It was already there. So you've got a new board, but when you change the board, you have to change the rules. If you just play with the old pawns and the old king, the advantage of one king is not enough to win. So I think they made some experiments, and they found out that by making the king the queen of chess and the king of draughts, one king in advantage is enough to decide the game. So those are, of course, what we now call the Frisian rules, but it has been played in many more countries earlier on. And perhaps they already used this queen-type king already in North Africa. We do not know for sure. We have to make some more investigations. But at a certain moment, they found out that on the big board, you can win with one strong queen, the real chess queen, who becomes the Frisian king. And then, at a certain moment, around 1730 in Paris, they introduced the new board, because onto that they had used the small board, the 64 square board. They introduced the new board with the new rules of capturing in orthogonal ways. And after 10 years, they decided to apply the old rules again. And then they created a problem that they didn't know at that moment, but that we do know right now. Namely, that to win the game, the advantage of one king is not enough. You should have 3. It is like some other draughts player wrote before. It is like making promotion in chess only to a horse. And if you could only make promotion to a horse in chess, you need 3 pawns that promote to win. 2 is not enough, 1 is not enough, 3 is only enough. So that's the same what happens now, in our opinion, in international draughts. It's a beautiful game, it's complicated, it's subtle, but you need a real, great, big advantage to win the game, because the promotion is too small. The promotion is too weak. It is the old promotion that sufficed for the small board, but which is not sufficient for the big board. So, my conclusion is, and I should not make a mistake at this moment, because this is very important, of course. My conclusion is, if one wants to keep the diagonal way of capturing, so only like a bishop, if one wants to keep that way of capturing, one should return to the small board. Because that way of capturing, that way of promotion, fits the board. And we think that it is no accident that this year, for the first time in history, there will be a tournament here in the Netherlands on the small board, the 64 square board, with, of course, the bishop-like king who only captures in a diagonal way. However, if you want to keep the large board, that's of course what we all want, if you wanted to keep the large board, and you do not want to lose the advantage of the promotion, if you want to keep the advantage of the promotion of one piece to win the game, in that case, the best solution would be to reintroduce the Frisian rules. Thank you very much. Any questions or opponents, people say, "Oh, what you say is not true."
We discussed with Martin.
Yes.
There's another solution
Yes.
that I suggested, and it was you play international drafts.
Yes.
If you don't win, for
Mhm.
example, 3 against 1 or 2 against
Yes.
1, after 15 moves, when there's
Yes.
no move by man or no jump,
Yes.
you apply the tile rule. That
Of
means
course.
you jump just 1 square behind
Yes.
the
Yes.
figure.
Yes. I know the
Yes.
solution.
Possible solution.
It's a simple solution. Only our objection would be that by that you create a new game alongside all those
It would
existing
be
games.
only the ending.
Yes,
only
but
only in
still,
the ending.
And then you will, I think that you will have a certain amount, a certain number of drafts players who say, yes, we will use the new rules, and other ones will say, no, 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 we keep the old rules. And then you have only more difference.
Yes.
And we do already have 2 games. One with the optimal rules for the small board, and one with the optimal rules for the large board. So 2 games are enough, in our opinion. Jean-Marc.
Yes, so based to what you say,
Yes.
I really appreciate this kind of explanation. It means to unify all these games, because the main problem in draft, I think, is the fact that we have so many.
Yes.
You go in Algeria, in North, in Asia, you have, well, as we used to say, our strength is in our unity. So I would like to know, in your views, maybe I think some have another idea, what will be the best solution to unify all these
Yes.
games? Is it to come back to Frisian or to, I don't know. So in your point of view, it's a question.
Well, of
What
course.
do you think about it?
Well, in that case, we would know what kind of game we would like to have. But that's, of course, the difficulty, that everyone thinks that, that my kind of game is the best, of course.
Yeah.
So, it's not really a problem that there are several kinds of games of draft, because there are several kinds of games of chess,
Yes.
and they are just different games, which are all called chess, but they are really different games.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, for example, Spanish drafts. I have played some games of Spanish drafts on Biblioteca the last weeks. It's just another kind of game. Yes, of course, with men on the board, but it's not really the same game. It's a different game. It has its own value. It has its own value. But it's very important to know the value of each game. And the value of the Frisian game is, of course, that it exactly fits the great board. And you have the minimal advantage for winning. Well, that is, of course, an advantage. International draughts has other advantages. So, and of course, it would be the ideal situation if there were only one kind of drafts. But I think if we had only one kind of drafts, then perhaps you and I would start to quarrel, and then we would have 2 again.
Yeah.
So, because that's the way the world works.
Right.
in my opinion.
That's okay.
Any others?
But it's not true. I think in some situations one
Yes.
piece is enough to win.
Yes, in some
Because
situations. Yes.
when you make promotion, it's enough.
Yes.
When you make promotion one king, it's
I know.
enough.
I'm simplifying matters.
Because
Yes.
so it's
And-
for the moment
Yes.
it's strong enough this. And
Yeah.
also you have situation when one player who has one more king, he can lose.